Welcome to yet another drunk impression video. Today we'll be covering Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, a game made by a bunch of Brazilians, and in honor of Brazilians making those games, I've decided today's drink is going to be a FRESCA tequila watermelon aqua fresca, brought to you by my wonderful girlfriend.
Isn't tequila Mexican?
Yeah, close enough. Bottoms up. Delicious. All right, that's it. All right, now that that's over with, let's get into the actual review of Pipistrello. All right, the story is as follows. You play as a bat furry named Pipistrello. His aunt is an energy tycoon who figured out that she can get energy from petals. And then she jacked up the prices and everyone is living in misery because commentary on capitalism, I suppose. But hey, it's still pretty funny and true to its, you know, it's true. You should have seen my electricity bill last month. I live in misery. Well, either way, the town folks get pissed off at anti-Pipistrello, and they decide to use a gun that sucks her soul out and turns her soul into energy. And during this, Pipit goes and smacks a yo-yo between it and causes it to absorb a portion of his aunt's soul. So now his yo-yo is his aunt's soul, I guess. When you look at Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, it looks like a top-down Zelda clone, but it has enough mechanics that differentiate itself from Zelda. The main difference being that the yo-yo operates as all of your tools rather than not operating as all your tools. I guess. You don't have multiple gadgets is what I'm trying to say. The yo-yo is used in combat, platforming, and puzzle solving. A lot of the puzzles have angle deflection mechanics, for lack of a better word, and some puzzles include platforming, though the platforming is a bit imprecise. Pipit's jump looks smaller than it actually is, and that makes it a little bit harder than it needs to be. The puzzles make me feel stupid. They ranged from, wow, that was easy, to, crap, I can't believe I didn't notice that, I'm really stupid, to, how was I supposed to know to do that? This game is made for kids.
This game is made for kids.
When I compared it to Zelda games, I wasn't kidding. It does seem like a Zelda game at heart, but it has arguably more of a combat focus than a lot of the top-down Zelda games did. The combat encounters are also pretty difficult in comparison to Zelda games. It's hard, but it's not rage quit hard. There's a bunch of different yo-yo abilities that go into combat and platforming, like the Walk the Dog, which allows you to zoom over water and around the world, which is basically a spin attack. They've made combat and platforming and puzzle making, at the very least, interesting. Because, again, some of these piss me off. The boss fights are pretty fun. There's 3 stages to each of the boss fights. They're relatively difficult. I think the biggest difficulty thing about them is the fact that they're each 3 phases, so they tend to linger a tad bit longer than they should, in my opinion. I can't tell you how many times I've died in the last phase just because I made a couple mistakes, and yeah, that's completely my fault, but hey, I'm gonna blame the game for that because I am no better than Dark Side Phil.
Well, fuck you and your mental illness.
Aside from the active abilities you get with your yo-yos, there's tons of passive upgrades you can get with a tech tree. This is done through some lady. She gives them to you, but she's also a germaphobe that won't touch money. So instead, you'll have to pay her off with the money while indebted. And while you're indebted, it incurs a penalty of sorts. Sometimes it's you get less damage, and sometimes you get less health. It does honestly make things a little bit more interesting, and you can pick and choose which abilities you go with. Then there's the badges. The badges, they add, they're equipable badges that add various boosts. Stuff like extra health, or being able to do more damage when you're on your last bit of health, or being able to stun longer when your yo-yo is not attached to your string. It feels like an old school GBA game. I know I grew up with the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, so I really appreciate those graphics and those types of games. So this one felt right at home for myself. And now I can play it while I'm inebriated. So as I said before, the graphics are reminiscent of the GBA. It uses high contrast colors, and it has beautiful pixel art. The downside is all of the characters are furries. Minus 1,000 points. Actually, scratch that. Minus 10,000 points. The last thing we'll discuss is Pipistrello's OST, and it sounds exactly like something you would hear on the GBA. I swear, I hear some of the instruments used in the Gen 3 Pokemon games. Also, something that's pretty cool is the music slightly changes when you go in the sewers. I really appreciate this bustling city that Pipistrello takes place in. It has a bunch of crazy shit going on. I took more damage from being run over by cars than actual enemies. And as someone who has been run over by a car on at least 2 occasions, possibly 3 now that I think about it, I can relate, and I appreciate this. Alright, so that was my drunk impression of Pipistrello in the Cursed Yo-Yo. If you liked the video, like the video. If you want more of this, subscribe. And if you want to suggest a drink for the next review, comment it down below. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah. The link to the game's in the description below. Have a good one. Bye.